guys, I'll be going through all of the matchups from the upcoming slate, picking which teams I think will be winning and why. So feel free to sit back, relax, and enjoy as we dive right into our Saturday lineup of games. We have two matchups this Saturday, and they're both going to be AFC North matchups. First, we have a battle between the 3-13 Cleveland Browns and the 11-5 Baltimore Ravens. Coming as a shock, maybe to many, at least to me, the Cleveland Browns have announced that they're going to be starting Bailey Zappi in this game. So, former New England Patriot, now on the Browns as the fourth string quarterback. He is going to be getting the start against the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens, I think, I don't have anything to report on this game. I think that the Ravens are going to win this game. Earlier this year, we did see the Browns take down the Ravens in their only other matchup, but that was behind the arm talents of Jameis Winston. I do think that Jameis Winston gives any team a layer of unpredictability where they could go out and win a big game, or they could lose a very feasible game in spontaneous fashion. And I think that Bailey Zappi is extremely mediocre, and that's not a knock on him. I just think that he is definitely backup quality material, backup quarterback quality, and he's going to be going against a Ravens team that wants to get another win. I think can the Steelers though take the division? This is research I should have done, but I'll just make some noises as I stall and look it up. Steelers clinch AFC North. Here's how the Steelers can clinch the number 3 seed in the AFC in Week 18. So, as of right now, as it stands, the Ravens have the 3 seed. They have it with an 11-5 record, and with the Steelers being 10-6, the Steelers can lock up the AFC North title was back last week against the Chiefs, but he was not on the same page as Russell Wilson. And when he was asked about not being on the same page with Russell Wilson, he got extremely upset and stormed out of the interview. And so, with that, I feel like there's going to be tension. There's going to be tension in the Pittsburgh offense. They kind of need him, whether they want to accept it or not. I do think that the Pittsburgh Steelers need George Pickens in order to win this game, and their defense isn't coming off the greatest showing either, having allowed so many points to the Chiefs last week in a year where the Chiefs offense really hasn't been all that special. So I think the Bengals winning 4 in a row, being as hungry as ever, knowing that it's do or die for them, they're going to be coming out with all they've got. And I think that the Steelers, they're desperate to try and get the train back on the right track before the playoffs, because they don't want another Mike Tomlin first round playoff exit like they've done many, many years in the last 5. And so it'll be a battle. I think it will be a battle, but I think ultimately the Bengals will come out victorious there, and it should be a great game. Next, moving into Sunday, we have our first matchup being an NFC South showdown between the 4-12 Carolina Panthers and the 8-8 Atlanta Falcons. I want to say last week I talked about the Panthers playing spoiler, and I do think that's still their ultimate motive. They can go out there and they can really ruin things for the Falcons. They got absolutely decimated by the Buccaneers last week. Not a impressive showing by them, but they can make the Falcons' lives absolutely miserable with another loss here. Falcons, on the other hand, they played in also a very entertaining game last week against the Washington Commanders, in which a game that went into overtime, but unfortunately Falcons never saw the ball and they would lose that game. So the Falcons, the last team in the NFC that still has a shot to creep into the playoffs, all they need to do is get a win here, and they need the Buccaneers to lose in their matchup. Now, seeing as the Panthers were so horrible last week, and the Falcons, under rookie Michael Penix Jr. in his second game ever, they were able to lead a comeback effort in the final minute, tie up the game, and then they couldn't do anything in overtime, but it was a valiant effort. It was a solid game played by the Falcons. Great perseverance shown at the end, and I do think that they've got something. I don't know if it's enough. Obviously it's not in their hands, but I do think that they have more than what is needed to take down this Panthers team. So I'm going to go with the Falcons getting the win here and keeping their playoff hopes alive for the time being. Next, we've got a matchup between the 11-5 Washington Commanders and the 7-9 Dallas Cowboys. Well, as I just mentioned last week, the Commanders, they took on the Falcons in a thriller, a game that was almost as good as Broncos Bengals, and we saw Jaden Daniels lead yet another clutch drive to win a game. He's had multiple games in the last couple weeks against the Eagles, now against the Falcons, where he is keeping the Commanders in a position to win and maybe even win a postseason game. We'll have to see. But the Commanders, Jaden Daniels is playing really well, and the Commanders, they're hot in their own way. Cowboys, on the other hand, they don't have a whole lot to play for. Obviously, you do want to get a divisional upset here. Give the Commanders a little bit something to pout about. Plus, it's your final home game. But really speaking, the Commanders have been playing at a high level, and with them clinching the postseason for the first time since 2020, I don't think that they're done. I don't think that they're ready to take their foot off the gas. I think this is just one part of the puzzle. The fans finally have something to be happy for the first time in a while, and to clinch the playoffs, and then get to go play against the Cowboys and maybe embarrass the Cowboys at home, well, it could be better for the Commanders fan base. So I think the Commanders will not be pulling their punches. They will continue to go and try and give the Cowboys some help. And they do have motivation. Right now they're currently tied at 11-5 with the Green Bay Packers. And as we know, the NFC playoff picture is stacked. So neither of those teams are going to be able to crawl into that 5 spot for the wild card. But both the Packers and the Commanders trying to stay out of the 7th seed. Commanders still with a lot to play for. I think that they go into AT&T or into the Dallas Cowboys Stadium and they get a victory here. And speaking of the Packers, we now have their matchup coming up next against the 4-12 Chicago Bears. Yeah, everything that I just said, though it would be cool in theory, I do think that the Packers get the win pretty easily here. They go against a 4-12 Chicago Bears team that has not won in 10 weeks. And the Packers own the Bears. So I think as far as like final week matchups can go, the Packers got pretty lucky that this is the final game on their schedule. I think that they get a win here. Couldn't do it last week against the Vikings, and that's a little bit of a crushing blow for them. Maybe not a crushing blow, but not ideal. They did start to climb back into that game, just too little, too late. A great fourth quarter effort by them, and I think that they're going to be mad at themselves, but they know that they won a game on the road last year against the Cowboys. They probably feel that they can do the same this year. And rather than playing out of the 7, they're going to want to play out of the 6. I think that they beat the heck out of the Chicago Bears once again. After that, we've got an AFC South matchup between the 9-7 Houston Texans and the 3-13 Tennessee Titans. Last week, Titans lost to the Jaguars, whereas the Texans... Who did the Texans play last week? I can't remember. Let's see. Oh, it was Christmas. It was the Christmas Day game. That's why I can't remember it, because it feels like so long ago. Texans coming off a really bad loss, actually. And their offense is struggling now that they have all of these injuries. They're completely battered up in their wide receiver group. And yeah, their offense failed to score a single point in that game against the Ravens. But luckily they're playing against the Titans, not the Ravens. The Titans kind of guaranteed to have 2 turnovers in that game. The Texans, at the end of the day, you still have Nico Collins. You still have a Joe Mixon and CJ Stroud. Even though he's struggling this year, I feel like there's no need to actually write him off. I don't think that he is washed, as people are saying it. I don't think that he is. I think that he's had an incredibly difficult year, incredibly difficult season to deal with in terms of the major injuries that's circulating around them. And this is kind of like a necessary get-right victory. After you lose like that, you need to wash your hands in it, forget as soon as possible before the playoffs, because you don't want... I can't imagine D'Amico Ryan wants his team thinking that they are a first-round exit, but that's the way they played last week. But they get an extra long week of preparation. They can take on one of the worst teams in the NFL. I think this is absolutely the perfect time for the Texans to run up the score and try and, take back some sort of confidence that they have lost over the last few weeks. Which probably did start with their loss to the Titans last time. I think they're going to be upset about that. Titans, they're going to try and play spoiler again, for sure, but ultimately I do think that the Texans will find a way research. I had no idea that Joe Flacco was going to be making the start last week. And I need to check on who is starting this week. Colts starting QB. Anthony Richardson doesn't practice Thursday. Back injury. I think the only thing more embarrassing than going out against the worst team in the NFL, letting them drop 40 on you, and losing your playoff shot would be to go against one of the worst teams in your own division and lose again. And I think I'm rooting for that to happen. We've seen back-to-back weeks where the Colts defense has really allowed anything to occur. The Titans scored 30 points on them, albeit a lot of it did come at the end of the game when it was kind of out of their reach. But we saw them allow 30, and then we saw the Colts defense allow Drew Lock to turn into Peyton Manning with 400 plus yards, all these touchdowns, 40 plus points. It was kind of astounding. And as someone who had Colts defense in a lot of leagues for fantasy, I'm kind of peeved about it. And I do think that the Jaguars, them getting a win against the Titans last week, I think that they can double down. I think that they can get the win against the Titans. They can end the year with a win against the Colts and feel pretty good about it. I think that the Colts, they're already kicking themselves. I think that they're defeated. I don't think that this is I think this is truly going to be the period on a brutal season for them. A season where they started off with AR, Anthony Richardson, and he kind of disappointed. Then he got hurt. Then Joe Flacco did pretty well. Then AR came back and kind of struggled. Then you benched him for Joe Flacco. And then Joe Flacco sucked, so you brought back Anthony Richardson. And then you had a shot at the playoffs. Anthony Richardson gets hurt. Joe Flacco can't save you. And now Anthony Richardson will be hurt for the final game. Joe Flacco will probably not play that well, and you will finish the year 7-10, horrified with the season you've had to go through. And I do feel bad. I do feel kind of bad for the Colts, but at the same time, they are cursed with incompetent quarterback play. It's just how it is, and I do think that it would be kind of poetic to have their season end that way. So just for the heck of it, I'm gonna go with the Jaguars beating the Colts, and I do apologize very dearly if there are any Colts fans out there. I'm not rooting against them, but I think that it's week 18. Have some fun with it. Just throw any idea out there. Now, speaking of just throwing any idea out there, after that we have a matchup between the 13-3 Buffalo Bills and the 3-13 New England Patriots. This is a matchup we saw not too long ago, and surprisingly in that game the Patriots actually came out to a very hot start, taking a 14-0 lead over the Buffalo Bills before eventually losing the game. But in that matchup, we did see some good things from the Patriots on the road, and the Buffalo Bills in this game, they will be resting. Josh Allen will be making the start because he has this streak of, I believe it's 114 consecutive starts, which is the longest in the NFL at the moment. It is the 11th longest streak for, I don't know, for a quarterback or for a player all time. I think quarterback Brett Favre holds number 1, I believe. Yeah, but Josh Allen is chasing it. So Allen has said that this is a streak that means a lot to him, and Coach McDermott has said that Josh Allen will get the start, but he'll only play one series at the most, or maybe even just a couple plays. So we'll be seeing backup quarterback play for Buffalo. And so, hear me out. In the last 2 weeks of football, we've seen two teams that hold the number 1 overall pick win their matchup for no explicable reason. I mean, I guess the Raiders is truly unpredictable. Can't believe it. And I think in multiple weeks now we've seen teams get paraded for their win. They say that it's the worst loss in the Raiders' history. It's the worst loss, right? The worst victory in Raiders' history. It's the worst victory in Giants' history. I think we're gonna see that trend repeat. We've got the Patriots playing at home this time against a divisional opponent. They haven't been able to beat the Bills in recent years. They had that one game where there was a bunch of wind and snow, and then Mac Jones threw the ball like 2 times. Other than that, the Bills have ruled this division, and I think Drake May wants to win. You know, we've seen Drake May do some great things in football this year, but the wins aren't getting stacked. I think that the Patriots, they don't need the number 1 pick. Some other teams that needed the number 1 pick, they still won their game. And for the sake of consistency, why would the Patriots not win this game? Why would the team that holds the number 1 pick not forfeit it at the end of the season for no good reason? And so, you know, it's just a perfect storm. Playing the Bills at home, you want to get something positive before you go into the offseason. I think the Patriots, they're going to be playing an easier Bills team, a team that they did pretty well against 2 weeks ago. They're going to get the best of them this time. The Patriots are going to go their 4th victory. And the Bills, they'll lose this meaningless game, and they won't really be that upset about it. I think we're also going to see possibly how valuable Josh Allen is in this game in his absence, I want to say. I don't know, just hunch. If, like, I'm not saying that the Bills are doing this intentionally or anything like that, but just for optics, if you take Josh Allen out of this game and the Bills fall flat on their face and they lose to the worst team in the NFL, could that theoretically not help his MVP campaign? Because it's the same group of guys that's winning 13 games with him, and then they lose to the worst team in the NFL. I mean, you could also just say, like, 2 weeks ago they almost lost, and that would be a plenty valid argument right there. But I do think that would be an interesting spin on it as well, that some people would run with. And yeah, I think all in all, the narratives are just too good, too juicy for the Patriots to not win this game. So let's go with another upset here. We're going back-to-back upsets with Week 18 nonsense. Now, cutting to our next game, this is going to be an NFC East matchup between the New York Giants, who sit at a record of 3-13, and the Philadelphia Eagles, who sit at a record of 13-3. We got some very unfortunate news prior to this game that Saquon Barkley will not be making an appearance, and meaning he is not going to go for the all-time single-season rushing record held by Eric Dickerson. I believe it's just 180 yards away. And what team to better achieve that than against their old team? I really think it would have been nice for Saquon. Just like it's the equivalent of a LeBron. Fuck you 3. That would be like a very big pin on the Giants. Something that he could really rub in their faces. I mean, not that he's that kind of guy, but I think it would have been pretty nice for him. Anywho, with that, the Eagles, I think they still want to show poise. They still want to try and, I think they can still get the 2 seed, depending on how things pan out. Let's see. Can Eagles get 2 seed? Oh, I'm so dumb. Yeah, I forgot. Whoever loses in the other game falls into the wild card. Interesting. is there any point in them winning? They're going to be resting hard. And we just saw the Giants win last week against the Colts. Now the Eagles' defense is in theory a lot better. Last week they did do a number on the Cowboys, so I'm going to give them the win here. The Cowboys, I do think, were a decent amount better than the Giants, and the Giants, though they had an inexplicable win against the Colts, ultimately I feel like the Eagles' defense in all games except for that one against the Commanders has been pretty solid. Kenny Pickett is going to get more reps in, and it's just going to be backups against backups, but these two cities don't like each other. These two teams, they're divisional opponents, and if you're the Eagles, a 14-3 season, it's pretty impressive. Rack up those wins. So yeah, though I contemplated it, though I really did contemplate it, I think in terms of team talent, the Eagles still have a lot more, and I think that they're going to win this game, even though they don't have anything to play for. Then, after that, you've got a matchup between the 5-11 New Orleans Saints and the 9-7 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, the Saints have the opportunity to completely ruin the Buccaneers' lives here. Buccaneers in a win-and-in situation. They get a win, they clinch the NFC South. If they lose and the Falcons win, then the Falcons progress to the postseason. And I think that would be motivation for the Saints. But do I think it is feasible for them to win this game after losing 34-0 against the Packers and then losing to the Raiders? I'm not giving them a chance. I think that the Buccaneers, coming off a scorching hot win against the Panthers, they're gonna find a way to win this game. They're motivated. They are keen on. I mean, they're already back in the driver's seat, and this is an ideal matchup for them as well. Playing at home, I think that they're gonna give the home team a lot to cheer for. I think they're gonna try their best to keep Mike Evans' 1,000-yard season streak alive. And I think the Saints, they just don't have the means to win this game. So I'm going to go with the Buccaneers winning here. Now, after that, we have our afternoon slate of games on Sunday, starting off with the 15-1 Kansas City Chiefs taking on the 9-7 Denver Broncos. Now, the Broncos are in a very simple position here. If they get this victory, they are in the playoffs. The Broncos also have lost their last two games, putting them in complete jeopardy when they had really good odds. Sorry, that was my ankle. They had really good odds a couple weeks ago, but then they lost to the Chargers on Thursday night, and then they lost to the Bengals on Saturday. And now they are in a stressful situation where they're at risk of losing their playoff spot. Now, if we take a look at both those games, they had a lead in the first half against the Chargers. That game was going kind of well. Then slipped away from them. We look at the game against the Bengals. They did have opportunities. It was pretty close, well fought. Now you go against the Chiefs team that you almost beat earlier this season, but also one that has Carson Wentz starting. And I really do think the Broncos can get it done. As I'm looking at it right now, they are not favored by the people all that much. I don't know if that is by want or if that is by actual prediction of which team will win, but as it stands, 51% of people are picking the Broncos to win over the Chiefs. I know that the Chiefs that nice looking. And yeah, really speaking, if the Broncos can't beat this team, they for sure don't deserve to be in the postseason. And I, as someone who doesn't even really want the Broncos in, I would much rather see the Bengals go in. I think the Dolphins, they won't do anything if they go in, though their chances of making it are rather high. I do think that the Broncos can win this game. I think it's kind of surprising that this many people have them at an equal shot of not winning the game. But yeah, overall, if this was a Chiefs team that had something to play for, very different story. This is a Kansas City Chiefs team that has the 1 seed all locked up. They're going to be resting. They're going to be starting Carson Wentz. And this Broncos team has everything to play for. And even though they didn't get their last 2 wins, they've been battling pretty hard. And even in the game against the Chiefs this year, it really just came down to a blocked kick. So I think that the Broncos, they know they can win this game, and they know they have to win this game. They're going to put their hearts on the line, and they're going to get it done. So I'm going with the Broncos victory here. Next, we have a matchup between the 10-6 LA Chargers and the 4-12 Las Vegas Raiders. The Chargers at 10-6, I don't think they want to risk losing a game here, because it's dicey. The wild card spots are dicey, because you see, if let's say the Ravens lose and wait, no, are the Ravens already at 11 wins? Yeah, they are. Okay. I don't think the Chargers can risk losing here, because then the Broncos could be the same record as you, the Steelers could be the same record as you, the Steelers could be in a higher record than you, the Ravens are already a higher record than you. All in all, having a higher wildcard seed probably benefits them. And yeah, so they're going to want to win this game. And the Raiders are a pretty easy opponent. I know they got back-to-back wins, but that's against the Jaguars and that's against the Saints. And at this point, they've slipped so far in the draft that I'm sure it's pandemonium out there. Another win would really put them in no man's land, and that would be very funny to watch, but even I am not. Well, I guess I am that cruel, based on what I said about the Colts. But no, I think it benefits both teams for the Chargers to win this game, and I think that it'll happen. Then next up, we have a matchup between the 9-7 Seattle Seahawks and the 10-6 LA Rams. I think there's still a little bit to play for here. The Rams, they're 10-6. They won the division, but I want to say that the Buccaneers getting a win and moving to 10-7. If the Rams lose, they might not have the tiebreaker. I don't know if they have a firm spot on the 3 seed. I think it's possible that they can. Let me just look it up. The 4 seed. If the Rams lose and the Bucs win, the Bucs would earn the number 3 seed. Okay, yeah. So still something to play for there. And what does that say? Which would set up Los Angeles to host the loser of Minnesota Detroit. You definitely don't want to be playing one of those teams. So yeah, LA still with a ton to play for. They're not going to want to lose. And the Seahawks, they're eliminated. They're at 9-7. And I think like the last 3 years straight, didn't they finish at 9-8? I feel like that's definitely a thing that has happened. So, why not another one? And yeah, I'm gonna go with the Rams getting a victory there. I mean, the Rams have also just been on a really good tear. everyone that they're a team that can win a playoff game. In the 4 seed, it would be tough. It would definitely be tough. A rematch of Lions-Rams first round. We saw it in the opening week. We saw it last year. It would be fun. Matthew Stafford versus his whole team. Jared Goff versus his whole team. One for the ages yet again. But no one, I don't think anyone in LA really wants that to happen. I think they know that's an opponent they can't necessarily beat. But I think that their odds against the Packers, or, well, I guess the Rams did beat the Vikings earlier this year. So maybe, who knows. But, yeah, the Packers or the Commanders feel like smaller fish to fry. And I think that they are going to want that, so I'm going to go with the Rams winning. After that, we have the 8-8 Miami Dolphins taking on the 4-12 New York Jets. Yeah, come on. The Dolphins, I think that they've really done a good job this season at correcting the ship, in a year that was very hopeless. Once Tua went down, he came back. He had them in a lot of close games, and ultimately he's put them in a position where they can actually make the playoffs in Week 18. Now, Tua didn't play last week, so that is a big factor here. Dolphins Tua Tagovailoa limited in Wednesday's practice with hip injury. Update. Dolphins announced QB plan for must-win Week 18 showdown. On Wednesday, Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel said they'll approach the day as if backup Tyler Snoop Huntley will start, while adding that the team will have time to pivot back to Tagovailoa as the week progresses. It's an easy adjustment that we're definitely open-minded to. Only last week against the Browns went 22 of 26 for 225 with a touchdown pass in the win against the Browns. But now you're playing against the Jets. The Jets. The Jets are so tragic. I really don't know. See, ideally I would say if your plan is to go out with your backup quarterback and this is a divisional game where the Jets can really ruin your season with a loss here, I'd say that they'd fight for it and they'd do it. But the Jets have let me down so many times this season. It's so funny. I'm a Patriots fan. I'm not even supposed to like the Jets, but I got the impression that they were going to be good this year, and I've been let down so many times, and that's just a fraction of the amount of disappointment that it is to be a Jets fan year in and year out. It's crazy. I think it would totally kill me. I don't know. Week 18, we're down for some craziness. I'm okay with getting a bunch of picks wrong. We're at this point in the season. May as well go with what's fun. Gonna go with a Jets victory over the Dolphins. Jets playing at home. They're gonna start off against Tyler Huntley, backup quarterback. Aaron Rodgers. Last week, yeah, he was horrendous. In that game. But prior to that, putting together a half-decent second half to the season. Jets, I don't really know what they can do at this point. They're kind of in no man's land zone. I don't know if Rodgers is coming back. I don't know if they're gonna sign someone in the offseason. I have no clue what their off-season outlook looks like. So I don't think that a win or a loss really hurts them all that much here. Obviously, they are a little bit higher if they have the 4, but I feel like how chance to catch Joe Namath for most passing yards in Jets history. But what is he at now? Let's try this in another. Rodgers also trying to become the first 4,000-yard passer since Namath. Okay. Joe Namath, most yards in a season. Namath, 4,007. What has Rodgers had? Rodgers passing yards this season. 3,623. Okay, so he needs like 385. He needs 385 yards to get that. So unlikely. Very unlikely. But let's say he's gonna play for it. Let's go for it. Going with a Jets victory over the Dolphins. Pandemonium. Let me down once again. Alright, after that we've got the 6-10 San Francisco 49ers taking on the 7-9 Arizona Cardinals. The 49ers, except for those turnovers, they were pretty sharp in the first half against the Lions. Their offense was moving. Their defense wasn't amazing by any means, but their offense looked really good in the first half until they started throwing the ball to the other team. And yeah, I like what I've seen from them. The Cardinals, on the other hand, I've been low on them all season. Both of these teams fighting for the lowest position in this division. Cardinals got the best of the 49ers earlier this year, but I think, as they were saying on the broadcast, the 49ers still want to show these younger guys how it's done, what they're playing for, the success. I mean, like, 49ers, they know how to win games. Like, we saw them go to the Super Bowl multiple times in the last few years. They are either a not in the playoffs or NFC Championship team, and I think they're still going to try and go out there and win, and they've got so many offensive weapons. Yeah, you couldn't get the upset against the Lions, but you can definitely get this win here, going with the Niners to win over the Cardinals. And finally, our game of the week, the one that matters the most. We've got the 4-2 Minnesota Vikings taking on the 4-2 Detroit Lions. Both teams having an amazing season thus far. I think some people could have predicted this for the Lions, that they would go on an even better run than they did last year. It was going to be hard, but they somehow managed to do it. I don't know if anyone predicted this for the Vikings. This is unheard of, 14-2. And the crazy thing is, one of these two teams is going to be heading to the wild card. They're going to have to play on wild card weekend on the road, because only one team can win this division. So, you have to make your pick. Do you think it's the Vikings? Do you think it's the Lions? Personally, I do not want to see the Vikings win that division. I do not want to see the Vikings as the number one seed in the NFC. Sam Darnold's having a great year. This coaching staff has done wonders. I really do think that the way that the Lions play football and everything, their entire story, is just so impressive. The turnaround under Dan Campbell, it's hard not to root for them. They have been so bad for so long, and it's kind of gratifying to see them do well. Now, they are riddled with some injuries, and their defense is looking mighty suspect. impressive, commanding start to that game against the Packers. Packers tried to lead a comeback attempt, were foiled towards the end there. And so, you have the Vikings, who are actually playing exceptionally good football. Very good compared to where I thought they'd be. I thought they were like a 5-win team. They're sitting here looking for a win of 50. That was a little too loud. Yeah, I don't know what to do about it. Health-wise, I think that the Vikings have the edge. Offensively, I would say that the Lions have the edge. Defensively, the Vikings haven't been that bad. But this is one of those gotta-have-it moments. I feel like if you're the Lions last year, you kind of got robbed with that Dallas Cowboys nonsense that happened in that game. And you played with a fire, with an angriness, and I think we saw that same anger in Dan Campbell last week. He's going out playing against the Niners, who aren't even a playoff team, and even when they're winning by so much, every time there's a penalty, this guy is mad. This guy is fuming mad. And I think that the Vikings, this is off the record. I don't know. This is just me speaking as a person, not as someone who is trying to analyze the Vikings. I don't think that the Vikings have what it takes. I feel like in years that they've done really well, we've seen them crumble so poorly. And I think everyone knows that this run is kind of crazy. We saw a similar thing under Case Keenum when he took over. They had a very impressive season that year. They even went kind of down in the playoffs. They had that great game against the Saints with the Minnesota Miracle. And, you know, what happened as a result of that year? They didn't run it back with Case Keenum. They got Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins played for a while. Led them to some great seasons like the 13-3 season, where they had all those one-score victories and couldn't win a game then. Lost to Danny Jones and the Giants. And I just think the Minnesota Vikings are not a team that moved me. And I want to say, now the thing is, they could take it. They could take this spot. But ultimately, if the Vikings get the 1 seed, I could still see them losing their first game. That is just the way I feel about them. They have lost to the Rams this year, and they have lost to the Lions. This is the only 2 losses they have. But this is a team that has beat them once. I think it's a team that will beat them again. And beat them again. And I think I will pick the Lions to win this game. Defensively, they do have flaws, and I do think it could go either way. But my gut feeling, my want is for the Lions to come out on top, and that is what I think will happen. And the Vikings, they're getting discounted. Like they were getting discounted in each of their 4 first weeks. And you know, they proved everyone wrong. Win after win after win against good teams. And it's likely they could do it. But I just, at the end of the day, I am questioning their legitimacy. And so, coming at them with a bunch of hate. And I deserve every bit of, I mean, like, if I'm wrong, pull up the receipts. The receipts are all here. I deserve to be flamed if I am wrong for this. But I just don't Jaguars over the Colts, Patriots over the Bills, Eagles over the Giants, Buccaneers over the Saints, Broncos over the Chiefs, Chargers over the Raiders, Rams over the Seahawks, Jets over the Dolphins, 49ers over the Cardinals, and Lions over the Vikings. Now, if you ask me, I do want the Broncos to lose that game. I want to see the Bengals come in. And I'm probably operating with a little bit of bias in that Miami game. Miami probably can win that game. So operating with a little bit there against my better judgment. But it is what it is. Just for a snapshot before I potentially ruin it on my picks this season. I'm currently at 165 to 82. I just got back over 6.6. I have over double correct than I had wrong, and I think that's pretty solid. Next week I'll pull up everything, how experts did. I'm missing a couple picks in here from one of the weeks where I didn't select, but I am curious to see how I'm doing against other experts. I'm currently in the 83rd percentile, which isn't anything that crazy. Pretty average. I think I'm doing pretty average. So we'll see. Maybe if I can go on a crazy run this last week, that can shoot up. Or it could all fall apart and I could jump down to the 75th percentile. Because I do have some pretty questionable ones. But we'll see. And as always, thank you for tuning in. I hope that you have been enjoying yourself these last couple weeks. I am about to go back into school. I start again on Monday the 6th. It's been a nice, relaxing holiday break. And 2025 is going to be a long year ahead. I've got graduation. I'll be graduating from college this year, hopefully. Not one that I'm too worried about, but I guess knock on wood, as they say. Then gotta find a job. Do have to find a job, which will be a task. In order to find a job, I will have to, polish up my resume, polish up my interview skills, apply to a bunch of places. So that'll be a process. And the goal is to find a job by the end of 2025. We're gonna see. If that is enough time. I think it should definitely be enough time. Between now and graduation, I obviously will have lots of other things to focus on. After I graduate, that's kind of when we have to hit panic mode, because then I do think I have to maintain an everyday composure of my life's goal is finding this job. And I do think the longer I spend without finding a job, the more difficult life will become, just in terms of my parents breathing down my neck, though they're not. I think that could become an issue, because I need to convey myself as someone who is very much in it to win it, and after that bread, so just being long distance with my girlfriend for an indefinite period of time is something that will, I think, weigh on us mentally quite a bit, and there'll be quite a toll. So, for the sake of mental steadiness in an easier life, I'll try and find that job as quickly as possible. So, fingers crossed. I hope